Today we are going to talk about the book, The Entirely True Story of the Fantastical Mesmerist Nora Grey by Kathleen Kaufman. That is a mouthful of a title. I cannot tell you how many different times I tried to say that and get all the words correct. Okay, so this follows the story of this girl. Her name is Nairna Lyeth. Her father is Tavish Lyeth. And they've kind of been on the road making a living. Tavish basically is a charlatan, and he sets up seances and has Nairna read tarot cards, which she actually has quite the gift for tarot readings. That in itself is not a lie, but everything the father does is, like, he pretends that he knows how to do dowsing, and, like, after a while, they'll run out of town. Like, everywhere they go, they eventually get run out of town because the dad is just a charlatan and he's making up stuff. But eventually, as Nairna continues to read tarot cards, they come to a certain town, and this woman, Rona, she sees her read the cards and sees that she has actual talent and wants her to come stay with them, her and these other people in the society who study under Madame Blavatsky. And they're like a psychical spiritualist society. And so this starts the story of Nairna, who eventually becomes Nora Grey. Part of the story is when Nairna/Nora is around, is in like the early 1900s, and then there's more to the story that takes place in like the mid 1860s as well, because you're passing back and forth between two timelines, and there's like this weird psychic link between Nairna and eventually her spirit guide / somewhat of a family member, and there's some weird almost time travel element to this book, which I thought was done really well and was quite fantastic. It's very magical, so it's like magical realism and historical fiction at the same time. You may have noticed I said the name Madame Blavatsky. That was an actual person who was in spiritualist circles and stuff back in the day as well. As Nairna starts to garner attention, also around this time too, if she gets too much attention, people might start saying she's a witch, and that could lead to bad things happening, which is one of the reasons, like, there's some stuff that happens as she's starting to come into her own and learn about like her psychic powers and whatnot. Sometimes she has these like psychic energy outbursts that may knock over a bookshelf or blow out a window. And at some point they're in town, in this one area, and they blow out this window. Some of the newspapers start to pick up the story. They're saying it's witchcraft, this, that, and the other. She ends up having to like get out of town. And so she goes and stays on this island, which is near Boston in America, because they were over in like the UK before. But when all this stuff happened, they needed to like get the F out of Dodge because she'd be branded a witch. Who knows what would happen? She might go to jail, and worst case scenario, they frickin' hang her or kill her, you know, because witchcraft and whatnot. They go to this island called Bell Island, and it's kind of almost like an Avalon where people go and they're safe and they're out of the public eye and no one bothers them there. And there's a whole thing about like maybe the island's haunted, so people don't go there, and no one really knows what goes on there. And so she goes and stays there for a while with her father. But then this one society comes and goes and talks to, we'll call her Nora now because eventually she is Nora for the rest of the book. And they go and talk to her, and she really just wants to like get out from under her father's thumb, and she wants to like do her own thing and be on her own. And she had met this other woman, and her name was Dorothy Kellings, and they had done a seance together. And this is when all this stuff happened, with all that kind of chaos happening. And Dorothy seemed very like ruler of the roost. She wasn't under anyone's thumb. Like, she was her own person. And like, while she was very intimidating and scary to Nora, Nora recognized that she wants that. She doesn't want these men to tell her what the F to do or to use her for their own purposes of like expanding the research in these areas of psychical, this, that, and the other. And so like, while she does love staying on this island and being out of all of this and having a roof over her head and not having like her father try to like use her for his own purposes to make money and then drink all the money away and gamble it all away. They have a strange like touch and go relationship. Like, while he cares for her, he's also an a-hole at the same time, and like probably doesn't see that he's using her for his own purposes, which maybe eventually he does see, and maybe he apologizes for it at some point in time, which he should have much sooner and shouldn't have been such a selfish sack of crap. But anyways, so her and her dad go there. And eventually these people from the Psychical Society come and talk to her, and they're like, hey, we want you to do this, that, and the other. And then she decides that she will, because they lived on the streets basically for several years of her life. And if they can make enough and she can like break out from under her father's grasp and do stuff her own way, she wants to go and do that. And so starts her career where she is legitimately having these experiences and is tapped into something that most of these other people in the society are just, faking a lot of it. So she is legit. And so she starts doing seances and all this stuff. Okay, so her spirit guide, which maybe isn't even really a spirit guide, but kind of, they think it is at first, ends up being Tavish's mother and then also her grandmother. But it's like a weird thing where Tavish's mom was in this like insane asylum because of a bunch of crap that happened where she got thrown in there. They were doing like hypnosis experiments on the mother, and somehow through that, and then with Nora, when she would do these seance things and go into a trance, they would somehow connect over time. And so she wasn't even having a spirit guide because Lottie, which was the mother of Tavish, was legitimately alive at these points, but they were both being hypnotized. And so like the time frames were different, whatever, but somehow they would get on this wave and then they could interact with each other. And that part was really fascinating. And then you find out like what happened to the mother, because Tavish too, the dad of Nora, never knew what happened to his mom. Like he grew up in an orphanage and didn't have any family, and the only thing he ever had was like a few things of his mother's. One of those was that tarot deck that he had given to Nora. And so there's all these like weird connections, and the whole like time travel element of it is what truly made this story fantastic. Also, addictive read. I started reading it, immediately pulled in. It's fantastic. The writing is awesome. I loved the characters. In the beginning, like, I hated Tavish, but there's so many shades of gray in this. Like, he wasn't a complete a-hole throughout the story, but a lot of it he was. So you have like the gamut of humans actually being able to learn and maybe insert foot in mouth and apologizing for the way they behaved. The story is truly captivating, and one of the better ones I've read about like a story with seances and the whole that time frame with spiritualism and this, that, and the other. Because they talk about some of the other players that were in the game too, like the Fox sisters and whatnot and stuff like that. So if you like magical realism and historical fiction, the entirely true story of the fantastical mesmerist Nora Grey might just be for you. And if you enjoyed hanging out today, hit that subscribe button, come back, see me again, and we'll talk about more bookish things and weird stuff.